Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Akibatun lil mustaqim wala rukwana ila ala dalimin. Subhanahu wa ta'ala ladhi yuhibbu mu'minin wala yukharihu mushrikeen. Muhammadan huwa sayyidina makbubana inhu kana sayyidan mursaleen. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ikhwani wahati fi Afrika, Europa, wa kulli makan. Assalamu ala mani taba huda. Ikhwani wahati fi Afrika, Europa, America, wa Caribbean, wa kulli makan. Highland wa silent bikum. How you doing today, my brothers and sisters who will view this in the future, inshallah ta'ala, bi'ithnillah. And I will talk about an interesting topic, the Fulani factor, which is a three-part, four-part series now, talking about the attributes of the Fulbe community, which many in America don't know about. And there's some history also that even the Fulbe community inside Africa have, Bilad Sudan, has never been brought up to speed on this. I'll cover something that is very interesting about the Fulbe community and history. And you might say, well, okay, well, what's happening? The reason why I'm talking about this is because and a lot of the history of the Bilad Sudan has been whitewashed. And the saga of the Fulani factor here has no different. We have now in many history books, you can pull up even in Google, you'll show the Moorish people who hit Andalus, and we'll get into that, as pencil-neck Tuba. It's disgusting. And you'll find a whitewash of our history, which is really shameful. And so I like to cover areas, especially about my heritage, which is the Fulani heritage, and talk about its attributes. So I talk about the Fulani factor because a lot of us don't know that. As we speak now, there are African Americans inside the United States are finding out they're Fulani. As I told you just recently, a childhood friend, I mean a real childhood friend, I went to school with, walked to school with, I know since we were 5 years old. Now we found out we were relatives, and she's Fulani as well. So this beautiful recognition is important. I saw in one of the Fulani community chats sites where Sheikh Islam was talking about the importance of knowing who you are and where you came from. And he hit it right on the head. So today, my brothers and sisters, I would like to touch on this subject. And I also want to touch on a three-part of this. We're going to talk about the conquest, yes, of Andalus. Andalus, we know as Spain today and West Africa. But we're covering the last aspect of this, which is how the Fulani, the Fulbe community, disappeared. Once it went north of the Sahara, it disappeared. See, so we're going to cover that. Excuse me, my brothers and sisters. I got to put my phone down here. Yeah. And so we'll cover that. So we'll get started here. The conquest of West Africa and Andalus. The West African conquest came at basically a later period. It followed the conquest of Andalus. You say, well, yeah, here, what are you talking about here? Well, we'll go back into history here now. You know that Spain was conquered by the Muslims in about 711 AD, 711 AD. And we know that the area that we know Morocco today, which covered at that time from Libya all the way across as a map. We talked about that before. I will show you here. I got this map in Arabic, but that's okay. The Maghreb of old was stretching all the way from your right hand over here to where you see Libya, which is in the brown area there. That was considered a Maghreb. But most of the damage that was done in Spain were concentrated in a geographical area of, we'd see, of Algeria, Mauritania, parts of Mali, and the northern part of Senegal, which is over to far left over here. And so the Spanish were known as Visigoths at this time. And they were a mixed race of people, Europeans, Tuba. And so they had a very ruthless ruler by the name of Roderick at this time. And Roderick and his band of maniacs were noted for ravishing women, Christian, Orthodox Christian women, Jewish women. He had not got hold of the Muslim woman, according to history, yet at that time. And so what happened was the Fulani factor will factor in here in a minute here. So one prominent Jewish businessman sent his daughter under promise of protection under Roderick, and Roderick himself ravished this businessman's daughter. The word came back to him. He solicited the Amir, who was sitting in Tunis, in Tunisia, as we know it today, and solicited him. He then did a reconnaissance of Spain to see if this stuff was happening. He found it to be so. So he enlisted in Morocco today, we understand today, modern day Morocco today. Let me see if we can get something. I'm going to show this, but this is not politically correct, my brothers and sisters, because there's no Western Sahara. But this is an old map only to get you to kind of see where we at here. And the Amir was sitting in Tunis, which you can see up there in the right, above right, and he enlisted Tariq ibn Zayed, Amazir, a black Amazir, general, famous warrior. So he was tasked to do reconnaissance again. He did. He found that Roderick was a brutal, ruthless, and he was persecuting the Orthodox Christians, yes, right, and the Jews. And also he found there was a lot of, ravishing of women. So he came back and he enlisted soldiers. Where did he go? He went into the Fulani range to get the soldiers, which we know today is the Senegambia region and so forth and so on. But he went to the Fulani range because at this time, there was a lot of, you have to remember something. The Fulani people had never been basically alone because you have the Tuareg. So they have been mixing and sharing culture, living together, going across the Sahara together, and whatnot, living in different, very close communities together. And so he went and solicited because they had mithaq, a arrangement agreements with many Fulani Kabils or tribes, and plus the Tukulor tribe as well, which are Fulani. So he enlisted these soldiers to go in. Why? Because by the 7th century, the first Muslims south of Sahara that the Afro-Arabs came across were what? The Fulbe community. That's right. Because he came a little bit south of the Sahara, who did he encounter? The Fulbe communities. So they took Islam and they took it hard. We all know how they took it. We still take it. We don't play with Islam today. We know that. Even today, we still don't play with it. They took it hard. And they already had the reputation for being horsemen and also with the sword. And so he enlisted Now, this is around 1710, close to 1711. So he enlisted these new converts to Islam, and they were hungry. And these brothers are already warriors. They were protectors of the Sahara. Everybody knows of them. The Tuareg know of them. Everybody had respect for them because of their fierceness. So now Tariq ibn Zayed, rahimahullah, he has got his army. It was approximately 12,000. Approximately 12,000. So he now borders through present-day Morocco with his 12,000 mujahideen, which were mainly Fulbi community mujahideen soldiers, some Hausa, and some from Tukulor and some other ethnic groups, plus some Tuareg who were black. Now you ask, why would he go there to get the soldiers? Because at this time, the Morocco was not fully converted in the area we know Morocco today, was not fully converted, and he was wary of his countrymen. Many of the Amazigh, they were untrustworthy, and they were not noted for their warrior skills. Let's talk about it. Bottom line. So he had to go south to where the Muslims were in Bilad Sudan, south of the Sahara, to go get these soldiers. So he did. So they entered Andalus. And this is where it becomes interesting. The first part of the Fulani factor I'm talking about, this becomes interesting. Here you have these warriors, Fulbi community, Fulani warriors, horsemen with swords, also with the ganjour, what do we say in Morocco, the short knife. They were tall, muscular, and they had a fierceness about them. And we know that we'll get into here what happened here. Let me give you the part here where they okay, now Edward Scobie, his name, he was a European scholar. This is where, my brothers, this is why we talk about this. Because if you see today, you'll see the Mujahideen who left to go into Andalus as pencil neck Tuba, white-skinned with pointy black beards. I mean, it's atrocious. And so they have whitewashed because they don't want it known that the black folk went into Andalus and kicked butt. They didn't want that. And they still don't want that today. So they manufactured a new invasion of this. They even made Tariq ibn Zayed as a white man, Tuba as well. But this is where we're going. He's witnessed this. In 711, he witnessed this. This European scholar, his name is Edward Scobie. You can look this up. And he talks about this, but he's racist, but he's going to describe something. Now look how he describes the Mujahideen. Now this is what he wrote. Where is it that he said that the Mujahideen, who became the Moors, were pencil neck Tuba? You see this there? This is what he wrote. He said they were black as pitch. This is what he said. They were black as pitch. And he talks about their eyes. Again, some of the Fulani, they have these features that are very, very piercing looking, And so this is the time now that the Visigoths, which were 1,000 who were coming to fight the Muslims, who now crossed into Spain. And here Scobie talks about their horses were swift as leopards, and the riders fiercer than a wolf and a sheep hen. The brothers, we know, we have a tradition, the brothers can fight. Let's face it, okay? We noted for fighting. I mean, we're noted for fighting. Even in the Americas today, we're noted for fighting. Okay, we know that. This is no different than 7-11. The brothers came in there and they were ready to deal, and they dealt a blow. They handed the Visigoths, the ancient Spaniards, a heavy blow. 100,000 fought 12,000. Then look what the scholar said about that after that. He said that noble Goths, the German rulers of which King Roderick belongs, were broken in 1 hour. The brothers, the Fulani brothers, the Tukulor brothers, some Hausa brothers, the Tuareg brothers, they began in earnest, 12,000 strong, led by Tariq ibn Zayed. They broke 100,000 Tubab warriors. 100,000 Tubab warriors. Our Fulani brothers broke in 1 hour. This is written by the scholar who witnessed the battle. And what should be noted is that the Fulani have always been expert horsemen and noted for their man-up skills. The Fulani have always been known to deal. I mean, one-on-one, man up. It's time to fight, they fight. So this is an important aspect, brothers and sisters. You have the proof that the people who came into Andalus first to not colonize it, to bring it under the Islamic rule, under 711, were Fulani, some Hausa, Tuareg, some Amazigh too, some Amazigh, yes, the Amazigh was there, but the people were black. The Tukulor also there. We understand maybe there was some Mendinka and maybe even Mende were also included in this. But they were black. He wrote about this. And he came in and handed the Spaniards a new one. 100,000 of them were defeated in 1 hour. They routed. The brothers were there and they meant business. So they took the reins of Andalus. The Fulani brothers took the reins of Andalus. And so at this point, we're getting to the sections here. The Fulani Jihad. Now you got to remember something. When the brothers took Islam, the Fulani took the Islam, they took it hard. They did not mess around with any shirk billah or anything like this. The brothers were straightforward. Islam, or you are for Islam, or you're against Islam, you are enemy. And this is how they took it. The Amazigh in the north of Morocco knew this. This is why they enlisted our brothers to come into Andalus to fight the Visigoths, because they knew how they were. We have Fulani scholars today who have uncovered a lot of this information that has been obscured and whitewashed. Now you see the Moors, who we all know mean black people, okay? That's how you got the country Mauritania, huh? Mauritania, white, because of blackness of the skin, darkness of the skin, blackness. But you'll see now you got pencil neck, guys with pointy beards, white man from Norway and all this. It's ridiculous. You know now they were black folk, for sure. So the Fulani Jihad was extensive. We know that. And even during this time, the Fulani began to manifest itself in Garib Ifriqiya, which is West Africa. They begin to manifest itself. And we also know that they had garnered the support of the Moroccan sultanates in history. Because of their prowess in fighting, the Moroccan sultanates always enlisted the Fulani soldiers. Always they have enlisted Fulani soldiers. This is something that they have always done. And so you can understand now, I'm going to get you to this point where you can understand what's happening and how the Fulani end up disappearing. Here are Fulani type individuals who are protecting, who were the principal guards for the Moroccan sultans. They were black. They were and the Portuguese, even though they might have been prejudiced, but they drew drawings of people as they saw them and talked in their journals about what they saw. And they saw these black men because they are already acquainted with them now because of what happened in Andalus. So they played an important factor in Morocco's history. The Fulani, very, very important. To the point, brothers and sisters, that the Moroccans today, you've been hearing me say this, I've said this on some other places, and I've said this in chats and so forth and so on. Most Moroccans today, as you look at it, even though many of them from the central part of Morocco up north are very light skinned, I'll get into that. But you know what? They have Fulani heritage. This DNA is popping up. Moroccans are shocked when they get to DNA and find out they have Fulani as well. And some of them are very, very pale skinned Moroccans. But they have Fulani heritage. Interesting, isn't it? And they have Hausa heritage as well. So as we get into this, the partnerships that developed to get us into Andalus were extensive. And so you know what happens with men. The Fulani traders and so forth like this, because they were experts in grazing and stuff. So they had products, they had things that they could get along with their Tuareg brothers. And there was trade going on. And there were marriages happening in the Sahara and the Senegambia region. So you had a mixture going on today. This is why I dispute with some of the hardened persons who said I was ignorant, especially this one woman on this one chat. She said I was an ignorant man, ignorant, without even knowing anything. And she came with stuff that was bizarre. The Fulani people have always traveled. They've always mixed with the population that they traveled to. They went to Egypt, back to Egypt again. They mixed. They began to live there, and they married wives there. They went to modern day Chad and Sudan. What did they do? They lived there and they stayed there and married local women. They went all the way to Tanzania. They did the same thing. They went to the Congo. They went there. They married the woman there. So don't listen to some are fanatical, uneducated, and uncouth Fulani brothers and sisters who make these comments about that the Fulani didn't do this or they didn't do that. And if they don't live in these certain areas and they're not Fulani, that kind of, please, brothers and sisters, don't listen to them. Learn the history, learn your Fulbe history. They don't know what they're talking about. Also, the cultural traits were swapped between them. Powerful alliances, again, begin to arise between them. The Tuareg, who were navigators of the interior of the Sahara, they knew the waterways. They knew where the water holes were. And the Fulani also traveled with them. So the Fulani began to mix. And I'll show you some of this. You'll see what I'm talking about. And they began to mix and travel the routes. This led to the disappearance of the Fulani, because the Fulani began to mix into the Tuareg and Amazigh populations. They lost their Pular. They lost their Fulbe language. That's how some parts of this disappeared, and I'll get more into that a little bit later here. I may be a little long today because this is important, brothers and sisters. Our people are they are worthy of a long conversation to talk about our history. We can't cover this in 10 minutes. There's no way I'm going to cover my ancestral brothers and sisters in 10 minutes. That's disrespecting them. Our brothers and sisters are great warriors who came into and kicked butt in Andalus, and also were prominent in the sultanates of Morocco, not only as warrior soldiers, but many of them became sultans themselves. So they're worthy of a long conversation, and I'm going to give that to you as long as it takes, brothers and sisters. So please bear with me on this. The Fulani utilizes horses and weapons to subjugate enemies. Now, we're going to move fast forward into parts here. How did the Fulbe community become so powerful? Because of their Islamic banner, they formed their communities and they kept their communities strong. And so when it was time to fight, the Fulbe community got together and they fought. They might be bickering. Maybe one village over here, the Tukulor might have been upset with another Fulbe community, but when it was time for jihad, they got together to fight. This is how they end up spreading and creating sultanates across Garib Africa, where we know as West Africa, because of this galvanizing factor of the Fulani. They stayed together. They manufactured their jihad, and they stayed together, and they began to go to area, and they conquered those areas. So this is how it did, and they took it fundamentally, and they spread the Quran and Sunnah to the point between the 1300 to 1800, Fulani scholars were everywhere, and they were famous inside Timbuktu as well. See, so I'm giving you history about the Fulani. Some will say, well, why you talk about this? We don't need to talk about that. Yes, we do need to talk about it. We need to talk about that because the Fulbe community has been slighted, as you've been hearing me say for weeks. And I'm giving you some history here to quell some of the misconceptions of the Fulbe community, because Fulbe community is thought of as pastoralists. They can't read and write. They're all stupid. They're all ignorant. And they go across the Sahara back and forth. They don't know which way they're going. I mean, you hear all kinds of negative things about the Fulbe community and about our brothers who travel across the Sahara. They don't have PhDs from Harvard, but I'm gonna tell you something. They can navigate the Sahara. And anybody's been to Sahara, it is a dangerous place, brothers and sisters. It's beautiful, but deadly. Ask the Tuba who come into Morocco and those areas in Algeria every year, and many die because they get misorientated. And they're educated. Many of them have degrees from Oxford. They got degrees in France. They got degrees in the United States. When they come to Sahara, that doesn't help them. Our Fulani brothers can navigate the Sahara. They don't have PhDs. They weren't raised and to be developed in Oxford. They didn't go to Harvard University. They didn't go to USC down in Los Angeles. They have their PhD in the Sahara, and they know it like the back of their hand. See, so I wanted to put that factor out about the education, because they talk about the Fulbe community as stupid, ignorant, all that. I hate that. But those people that you see who are going across there, it's funny. They know the weather. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them. They know where the water holes are. They actually know how to treat the animals. They know what area is going to be grazed, should be grazed in a couple months. They don't have watches. They don't have charts or anything like this, but they know by reading the stars and they know the environment. So they say, hey, wait a minute, it's time to move on. The grass will be greener here, further west or further east here in a month. They begin to travel there without any of these guides. That's right. So they made alliances with many non-Fulani peoples, which is true. We talked about that. And this is even prior to Islam. And the union between the Fulani man and the Tuareg woman, Amazigh woman, was very, very common, brothers and sisters. I am a result of that amalgamation. My great-great-great-grandmother, who was taken from Maghreb, Fatma, she was Amazigh and Fulani. That's right, Amazigh and Fulani. My great-great-great-grandmother, Amazigh and Fulani. So we know that this mixing took place because I'm remnants of that now. My ancestors. That's why I have Fulani. When I did my DNA, I have 25% Amazigh. 25%, not 1%, 25% Amazigh. I got upwards of 50% Fulani. So now we'll get to a part here. This amalgamation caused something to happen among our people. And this was very telling. Now we have to travel back to Andalus now. 711. Okay, 711. The Fulani brothers, Hausa brothers, Tukulor brothers, some are Mendika brothers, Mendi brothers, who were conquerors, Mujahideen, Fisabili Allah Ta'ala. Now we're in control of most of Spain. And what do men do when they conquer something? They usually, what? Make the women. And this was a simple fact. So 7-Eleven, as I said again, led to the disappearance of the Fulani factor. Because under the banner of Islam, the tribal loyalties was dismissed. And so there was no longer talking about I'm Hausa, or I'm Fulani, or I'm Mandinka, I'm Tukulor, I'm Mende. That they stopped that. And so now, when the conquest of Andalus happened, it was a good thing. But the disappearance of the Fulani factor, as I said, began to subside. What happened? The Fulani brothers began to take local Tubab women as concubine and war booty. We know it as Anfal. The Surah 8, it's called Anfal. It talks about the war booty, how it's handled out in time of war. And when the brothers came into Andalus, into Spain, there's a rule under the Sharia says that we do not leave women to fend for themselves after their men have been killed or ran off. We don't leave women in towns all by themselves because they are subject to being hurt, injured, because it's not their job to go out and to get the food. It's not their job to go out to fight the invaders or go out and fight robbers or criminals. It's not their job to do that. They're not physically equipped to do that. It's a man's job. So under Islam, under the Prophet ﷺ, under our Sunnah, we take these women in and we bring them into the community, irrespective of color. We don't have that. We don't have that. So they bring these women into the fold of Islam. Now they can convert to Islam if they want, because there's no compulsion. We can't force them, or they stay as they are. But the brothers have access to them because this is part of their. And so maybe he has 5 or 6 we call handmaidens who they took from a town. They can't fend for themselves. He is responsible for clothing them and feeding them and giving them their provisions. He can't treat them like what they did to us there in the United States. They can't treat them in this fashion. They had to clothe them, they had to feed them, they had to protect them, they had to make sure their well-being, they had to keep them in good health. This is part of the Sharia. So they took these Spanish women as we know them today into their households. Many of them came to Islam and they began to have children from our Fulani brothers. This amalgamation between the Tuba Spanish woman and the Fulani, Hausa, Mandinka, Mende, Tukulor brothers was so extensive, brothers and sisters, not just one place. It was so extensive because remember, we were running Andalus at the early stages. It was black men running Andalus. And it was them who were taking towns, and they took the women put them under the protection of Islam. They were white, Tuba. So the black mujahideen and the local Tuba women, they created a new race of people, brothers and sisters, called the Melungeons. You can't have a Melungeon person without the Fulani factor in it. And Melungeons were created from a black father and a white mother. We call them in the United States mulattoes, but we call them here Melungeons. Okay, so they created a whole new race of people. This was the beginning of the second stage of our disappearance. Our Fulani ancestral brothers begin to disappear because they took in these women and they began to they had these children, and these children now became Melungeons. They many of them didn't speak the Fulani dialect anymore. They spoke Arabic. See, and some adopted Amazigh, because if their father was a black Amazigh, he spoke Amazigh, so his children spoke Amazigh. See, so this is how the factor of the Fulani factor began to disappear. This goes all the way back into Morocco. We'll get into that. So the Fulani factor was erased from the history of the conquest because of this amalgamation. And so many scholars admit that the black people created the Melungeons, along with white females. Many rightful scholars will note that, but some of the racist ones will not note that. You pull up Google today, you'll see some say that the Melungeon is created because he mixed with the Turks, he this and that. That's not the case. He might have mixed later, but the Melungeons were created because of the amalgamation between the Fulani, Hausa, the Mendinka, Mende, Tukulor brothers took in handmaidens who were white after the conquest of Spain, mated with them. They had children, and not just one. They had maybe 5, 10 handmaidens. Each one of these ladies might have had 5 or 6 children. This is how this race began to spread. They call them Melungeons. Do your research, brothers and sisters. The Fulani Mujahideen were the rulers and the aristocrats who ruled at that time for about 100 years in Andalus. They ruled about 100 years. But then they were replaced by the Afro-Arabs because the Caliphate saw fit to bring their people into from the Jazeera Arab, Middle East, okay, the Saudi Arabia, and brought them into Andalus at this time. No, excuse me. At this time, I think they went to Baghdad. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the correct date. But anyway, they sent Afro-Arabs to govern. So they replaced their Fulani brothers as rulers and aristocrats through Andalus. This caused a problem, brothers and sisters. This caused a problem. This started the problem which will manifest in 300 years to about the 12th or 13th century. I don't want to get into that. This beginning problem had between the Afro-Arabs, the Amazigh, the Fulani, and the Tuareg. And the Afro-Arabs are here, and here's the other 3 here. They begin to have a little conflict here. So, but that's further down the ladder here. We'll get into that. And this was the kind of beginning of the racial hierarchy, which I don't want to get into right now a little bit. I'll tell you, I will go ahead and say this. You say, well, yeah, I don't understand the Afro-Arabs. Okay, let me give it to you straight. By the 12th and 13th century, brothers and sisters, the Fulani factor was no more. Okay, they didn't know. They know that you had a black daddy, but they didn't know if your daddy was Mandinka or he was Tuareg. They didn't know. So what this hierarchy was like an Indian, like the subcontinent, India and Pakistan, they had a caste system. If your father, they come to you and they say, okay, Yahya, and they put you according to the system, and they regarded you as such, they ask you, Yahya, well, who was your great-great-grandfather? They were Fulani, they were Hausa, whatever. You were at the lowest class now. They go to another guy, Ahmed. Hey, Ahmed, how about your daddy? Who when he came, who was your daddy? My daddy was Afro-Arab. Oh, great-grandfather's Afro-Arab. They moved him to the top. You see the picture, brothers and sisters? If you found out that your daddy was Tuareg, they moved you up a little higher than the Fulani and the Hausa and the Mendinka. If they found that your daddy was Melungeon, they moved you up next to the Afro-Arabs. This is what ultimately destroyed Andalus, along with the debauchery, which I will get into another time. And here again, just before the breakup of the downfall of Andalusia, brown, black, and other Andalusians left Andalus. This is another thing, because it's prized warriors who protected Andalus for 700 years. Less than 700 years. We'll say about 500 years, because they begin to leave. And they left to go back into Al-Maghrib because of the racism and because of the debauchery, brothers and sisters. The debauchery was so great. Do you know, you heard me on other shows, they talked about the Visigoths was smart. And also the others who were watching the Islamic Empire, France, as we know today, they were watching the Islamic Empire. They begin to notice that they start putting a big premium on women from the northern part, like in England and Ireland. They begin to flood the market, and slave traders who would bring in these white women two white women from Ireland. And guess what? These brothers begin to pay big dollars for the woman according to her pubic hair. Yes, brothers and sisters, this is the debauchery that was going on because he was so wealthy. They begin to have fetishes. They take the slave woman, they strip her. If she had red hair, they paid her premium dollar. The pubic hair, genitalia area. If she had red hair, they paid a premium dollar for her. If she was blonde and others, they paid less. This is the fetishes that happened. Our brothers was tired of that. And the racism was going on top of that. Because of the caste system, they begin to leave. By the 12th and the 13th century, the black folk, brown folk, Amazigh, the Tuareg and so forth, Fulani descendants begin to come back into Al-Maghrib. This is a simple fact. These black and brown men will be the catalyst of the remaining the four great sultanates of Morocco. They went into Morocco. They didn't stay quiet. Our Fulani brothers and Hausa brothers too, and Tukulor and Mende and Mendika brothers begin to go to the south of Morocco. There they began a new revolution of sorts. They begin to now take reins of Morocco as we know it today. And they created these sultanates. And even before that, Murabitun, Muwahidun, these all were created basically in the south. And guess who the people were? They were black. They were Fulani. See, so we have this element now. Is you get the picture of the great factor, the great Fulani factor. Even though they left Andalus, they didn't stay quiet. They came back in Al-Maghrib. And by the 12th, 13th century, they began to form sultanates in Al-Maghrib. And the sultans were black. And they were Fulani. So, brothers and sisters, this is a very interesting part of the history. And so here we talk about the Fula, the house of the Tukulor people, and so forth and so on. And the Tukulor people are a mixture of Fulani people, but they consider themselves Fulani. Others do not, but we won't get into that argument today. And as you heard me talk about, they produce sultanates and so forth. And these brothers, around about the 1400s, the Sultanate de Saadiyin, what's important about this? The sultanates. There's one in particular that I was apprised of from a good friend of mine that I worked with many, many years ago. I met when we worked, and he had saw something, pictures drawn. He saw one sultan of Morocco in the 14th century, 15th century that looked exactly like me. And the professor who was talking about the sultanates of Al-Maghrib at that time was talking about this. He told him, he said, look, I want to show you a picture of somebody I know, a good friend of mine, a brother I've been knowing 20 some years. He showed him my picture and they married up the picture and I look like my ancestral brother. What's so funny about this, brothers and sisters, in my DNA, in the high stages of my DNA, there's one brother with the last name Saadi. The Saadi people are those who created the Saadi dynasty, the Sultanate in Morocco. They took this name Saadi. One of my cousins, I'm talking about high up in my DNA, his last name is Saadi. That's right, brothers and sisters. I just give you that just to show you the importance, why I'm so proud, so happy to know my history. And all brothers and sisters who take and understand the history should have this pride and self-fulfillment now. I know who I am. I'm Fulani. The other person, I'm Hausa. I'm Tukulor. I'm Mendika. I'm Igbo. We should have that feeling now because we've been called African Americans. It's too vague. As you heard me say previous weeks, we settled the American part, but we never settled the African part. I've settled both. I was born in America, but my African heritage is Fulani and Amazigh. And I also have some Mendika and Mende as well. See, and Omo from Sudan and so forth and so on. So we have that. Now we have this final push here, and to eliminate the Fulani factor in the 17th, 18th centuries, there's a great migration. But I'm going to get into something before we touch on that, brothers and sisters. How do we get to this point? I want to show you something. This is an interesting part. You see this Fulani ruler here in Andalus. Look at the woman, his handmaiden. She's white. This is the union that I'm talking about, because they didn't import our Fulani sisters, our beautiful Fulani sisters, our beautiful Hausa sisters, our beautiful Tukulor sisters, or Mendinka or Mendi sisters. So they took the local women, which our Fulani brothers have a history of doing, and they mated with them and produced this Melungeon woman and man, okay, a new race. This is the union I'm talking about here. You had rich, now Fulani aristocrats in Andalus. They were conquerors. They took over cities. Many of them had 12, 20, 30, 40. Some they said had 50, essentially almost like concubines. But they lived under the banner of Islam, and they were known as house maidens. And many of these white women, came to Islam, and a lot of them didn't come to Islam, but they had children by black fathers. This is what we talk about here. And so that situation produced this, brothers and sisters. This is what you call here the Melungeon woman. We understand her today. This is the product of a Fulani father and a Tubab mother in Spain, in Andalus. They produced these type of women. They look like African Americans. We know them today. Many inside the United States. I know many. But she also looks Fulani as well. But this is a mixture of a black father and a white mother. And so now you can get the picture to see what has happened, how the Fulani factor disappeared. This woman here does not consider herself Fulani. She will say she's Amazigh because her mom. That's what she will say. I'm Amazigh or I'm Tuareg. That's what they will tell you. They will not say Fulani. They don't even speak the Fulani language anymore. The Fulbe language, they don't speak that. They only speak Amazigh and Arabic. But her daddy, her grandfather were black. Her mommy is white. So now you see, now you can understand what has happened here. And also this, look at this woman. Here, the way you see the similarities in the culture of the Fulani and the Amazigh and the Tuareg. They begin to mix the culture because they begin to take wives and they're producing children that look like this. An Amazigh woman, a light-skinned Amazigh woman who's Melungeon, begin to produce children like this as well. She has some features you could tell she can pass for Fulani in some ways, but she's Amazigh. But look at her headdress. She has similarities of some of what we know in our Fulani culture as well. Look at her. She is a cross. She could go here in Morocco. I'm telling you, look at the designs on her face, brothers and sisters. Look at the designs on her face. You'll see this among the Amazigh and Tuareg women today as well. She can go into Morocco here and they'll think that she's from the south. They'll say, hey, oh, you Tuareg. But she may be Fulani. She can go into areas of the Gambia, or she can go into Senegal. She can go in Mali and they'll think that she's Fulani, when in fact, she's quote unquote Amazigh or Tuareg. You get the picture, brothers and sisters, what I'm talking about, how this amalgamation has transpired. Look at here. These designs are very similar, isn't it, among the Fulani people? But this Amazigh. And I want to show you something here to show you. Look at our dear sister here. Look at the tattoos. She has the tattoos. I showed this picture to Moroccans, and they were shocked because they thought she was Amazigh and Tuareg. You see, but she's Fulani. You get the picture, brothers and sisters, how this mixing has transpired, how the cultural traits, why the Fulani disappeared when they went in north of the Sahara. Now you understand how they disappeared, because they began to mate with the women and they produced children, and those children did not learn the Fulani language and culture too much anymore, because the wife could not speak the Pular or any of the Fulbe dialect. She could not speak that. She could only speak Amazigh and Arabic. So the children followed the mother. We know that. So the mother teaches them Arabic and Amazigh. This is how they lost the Fulani, and that's how we disappeared in North Africa. See, so that is something we have to look at. This union here, back in the 7th century, 711 and onwards, is what is the mastermind behind the disappearance of the Fulani. Here's a Fulani brother, and he could be married to her, or she could be a housewife, a handmaiden, as they call her. And handmaiden, she can be something in this range. And again, she produced these children. Some had 5 children, some had 10 children. So you think about this brother. This brother had 10 handmaidens. He had 5 children each. He had 50 children. This is not uncommon, brothers and sisters. Some of our brothers had upwards of 100 children from handmaidens alone. See? So, and they produced these Melungeons. Now, let's get into this thing about the Melungeons real fast, brothers and sisters. These are the Melungeons that you see in the United States today. You see them? This is a Melungeon man here who are descended from Andalus. Remember when Andalus broke up, the Spanish conquest happened. They began to go over into the New World. Many of the sailors and artisans were Melungeons. They came into the Americas. They end up marrying, as you see on the left-hand side, Indian women, native Indian women, and produced even more amalgamation of the Melungeon population. Here, these old pictures here, these are Melungeon. My mother and my mother's side have this look as well, like this lady here. This is Melungeon right here. Again, descendant from that union that began in 711, brothers and sisters. They produced these offspring who went into the Americas, and they were known as Melungeons. And they thought many people thought they'd be strange because they weren't white, they weren't black, even though they had black skin, but many of them had very curly, wavy hair or straight hair. The women were noted for very, very long hair. Some of the notables inside the United States, they say that Abraham Lincoln was Melungeon, his ancestry. And they even said Elvis Presley as well was Melungeon. He had Melungeon ancestry, and people make jokes about that. That's why they say he can dance the way he did, because he had a lot of brother in him. I won't get into that because we cannot speak bad of the dead. So you see this again, this amalgamation and whatnot, and it's an interesting factor here, brothers and sisters. And here's another Melungeon factor. Look here, you see a very dark, like African American man, but look at his hair. Look at his children. This is a Melungeon woman and a Melungeon husband. The mixtures, because they have mixed with Amazigh, they have mixed with Fulani, they have mixed with the European, of course, and they have mixed some with the native Indians of America. They produce children like this. Look at this man's children. He has one child, the oldest, that looks very, very, very light-skinned. Look at the little boy to the right. Look at him. Look at the boy above him. Very, very dark. Look at his hair. Look at the little boy to the left. You see, this is because of all the mixtures that begin in 711 and Andalus. You see what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters? This is a very, 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 very telling situation about how the Fulani end up disappearing. These people here, they test them. You will find Fulani or Hausa heritage in their DNA, which some Melungeons have been tested, and they've debunked the new racist theory that the Melungeons were were European and they started mixed with Indians. They debunked that because now the DNA's come out and they start to find sub-Saharan. Even Google has admitted that sub-Saharan Africans played a part to create the Melungeons. They finally begin to admit that. See, so we see this amalgamation. This is how the Fulani disappear, brothers and sisters. This is how they end up disappearing from the scene of the conquest of Andalus. They disappeared in the scene in the United States. See, so now you see that picture. Now you can understand what has happened. And so we have a picture here, brothers and sisters, of the Fulani factor. And the Fulani factor, again, brothers and sisters, is big because the Fulani factor, as we always look at this map, you see the Sahara right there. We're on the fringes, but we always have been in the north, and we fought and we created sultanates in the Moroccan area. Okay, we know as Maghreb. They created that. They helped to create this. They helped to solidify this. And also in the 10th century, Murabitun, the most famous of all the sultanates, because they came in, again, brothers and sisters, they came in at a time of Andalus under the rule of the sultans of Andalus, who were Afro-Arabs. And they had conflicts with their black brothers and Amazigh brothers and Tariq brothers. They had conflicts with them. And they ruled the areas of Andalus, the Afro-Arabs did. But when they ran into trouble, they went back into where? Al-Maghrib again. Al-Maghrib had developed in an area of what we know as Mauritania. Remember Moors? Mauritania, right? Black, okay? Black. Mauritania, that's where their word came from, Moors, right? Now, they went to solicit a famous journal by the name of Yusuf and Josephine. He was not creator of Murabitun. I won't get into all of that, but he had a great Sheikh Islam in this as well, and they began to form in the Mauritania region. The Fulani people were instrumental in that because when Murabitun was created, they left from the north and went back into Balad Sudan to live around the Fulani people for protection, brothers and sisters. That's right. Now, when they began to decide they were going to take all of Al-Maghrib, the Murabitun, then they began to push north. These are Fulani Mujahideen soldiers, along with some Hausa and some Mandinka from the Senegambia region. They moved into Al-Maghrib. And you remember the map I showed you. This map here is actually the map of the Murabitun, how they had their conquest. This is the Fulani conquest as well, because the Fulani were the main characters in the Mujahideen group known as the Murabitun. And Murabitun came around in the 10th century. And when their Dola nation became powerful, this is what their ruling was. They ruled all the way to near Cameroons. Their influence. Again, Fulani. But as they begin to mix, they adopted Amazigh and they adopted Arabic as a language by the 10th century. But they went back into Andalus in the 10th century to fight the Visigoths, because now they were powerful again in the 10th century. And they're about ready to go in to Andalus to take over their country back again from the Muslims. See, so one of the emirs of their fiefdoms, they begin to develop fiefdoms and they start having arguments. They were not cohesive. And the Visigoths knew this. But one emir was smart. He had an Amazigh advisor in the Shura council. We have that in Islam, where we have a council, you have the emir and you have the council around him who advise it. He said, look, I know of my brother in Al-Maghrib, and we have a Mujahideen group at this time called the Murabitun. He said, let me go down to talk with them to help to assist us against the Visigoths, who were about close to raiding Andalus to take it over in the 10th century, brothers and sisters. He came and discussed this with Yusuf Josephine Rahimahullah. And the brothers went back into Andalus. Now, again, brothers, they beat the Visigoths twice to preserve Andalus for the Muslims. The brothers stayed there again. Now, here we go again. 711, we had the mixture, remember, between the Fulani, Hausa, Mandinka, Tukulor brothers, the Tuareg brothers, and the white woman, Tubac woman, right? We had that mixture. Then we had the Afro-Arabs who began to marry some of the girls, right? Some of the women of this union of the Melungeon. They began to mix with them as well. By the 10th century, you had another infusion of black blood, the Fulani blood this time again. You see how mixed this situation got? How the Fulani disappeared? These are Fulani men who came in the 10th century to Andalus. And they began to take wives among these Melungeon women who were already mixed with Fulani, but they were now mixed with Afro-Arab, they were mixed with Amazigh. You see, they were mixed with Tubab. You see, this is why the Andalus woman was, some were very dark with straight hair, some were very light with kinky hair. You had men who were almost black as the night, but their hair was straight. This is the Melungeon factor. I showed the pictures of the Melungeon factor, how some of them are three times darker than me, but the hair is straight or curly. Less kinkier than my hair. So they came back in 10th century and again added to this. This, brothers and sisters, was around the last of it. And then the Murabitun began to get weak again, and then another Muwahidun. Again, we have another part of Mauritania into the Fulani factor, into the Fulani region, again, helped to form this next Mujahideen group. They came and again got brothers into this new Mujahideen group, and they call themselves the Muwahidun. And they again established Andalus for Muslims, and mixing occurred. By the 12th century, brothers and sisters, the racial class system began to take hold. And the black brothers began to leave out. Their best, brightest warriors began to go to Al-Maghrib because of what I explained earlier, the aforementioned about the debauchery and the caste system and racism. See, so we had those factors that factored in, and again, brothers and sisters, we look at this and we see these factors here. You have this Amazigh woman here. She's a very light-skinned Amazigh woman, but you see some things about her lips. You see things about her, and look at the design. We find these type of designs with the Fulani brothers and sisters further south. These women here married our brothers a lot and produced these offsprings that we talked about. These kind of women here, Amazigh women, married many jet black Fulani brothers. And she raised those Fulani children to be Amazigh. Now you understand how we disappeared in North Africa. This is the reason, brothers and sisters, we had this. We have a Tuareg woman. We have a Fulani woman. I mean, a Amazigh woman, Tuareg woman. She marries a Fulani warrior. They have children. She raised those children under Amazigh. They speak Amazigh and they speak Arabic. They didn't speak Fulani tongue anymore. Disappearance, erased. The Fulani factor has been erased. And let's take it further. We look at this girl here. Let's go back and even look at this further on. This sister here, look at her, gorgeous. Now, if we put her in the Gambia, we put her in the northern part of Senegal, we put her in Kano, we put her in Borno or any of the places like this, they'll say she's Fulani. But she says, I'm Tuareg. But you take her DNA, you find her like my mixture. You'll find her, 50, 60% Fulani, 25% Amazigh or Tuareg. But yet she identifies as Tuareg. She can't speak any Pular or any of the Filbi languages. She can only speak Amazigh. Again, the disappearance. We have disappeared in North Africa. See, and so this girl here, this sister here, is Tuareg. known as Tuareg. See, so I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, I kind of cleared up a lot of myths here, because I wanted to talk about this issue with us today, because there's a lot of talk among, and I've had some brothers rightfully ask me, hey, you live in Maghreb. I don't understand this. I saw black people, this and that. I wanted to clear this up so you can understand what happened. And again, by the 17th, 18th century, we had a new influx. This is the region of the Fulani region, along with this is the Fulani region here. We have, again, a rich history, brothers and sisters. We have a very, very, very rich history. When you talk about the Mandinka, you talk about the Tukalor people, you talk the Mende people, you talk about the Mandinka people. And let's get back to this map here, the incorrect map. But please excuse me. This is a not political map. I'm just only using this to show again. So we've had this, and now you understand, brothers and sisters, what happened to the Fulani factor. It disappeared because of the amalgamation between Fulani men and Amazigh women. And also in the 7th century, they disappeared because of the amalgamation with the Tubab Spanish woman in Andalus, which is further north. You see Morocco, everybody know where Spain is. So in there, and that created the first part of the disappearance. So you can understand, brothers and sisters, why we disappeared in this situation. And I'm hoping that I shed light with you today, my brothers and sisters, about this issue, because it's very important, brothers and sisters, that we understand our history. We be proud of our history, and we should understand what happened to our history, and so forth and so on, and how we disappeared into this great big desert here, and how we went to the north, and what happened to the Fulani factor. You see the sister, you swear she looks Amazigh, but she's Fulani, but she's Amazigh by culture and language. You see, so this is what caused this problem, and why they don't identify with the Fulani anymore, because they were raised by mothers who were Amazigh and again Tuareg, and they spoke their languages, and that caused our presence to disappear. So I'm hoping I shed the light here on this, because brothers and sisters, because this is a important topic for us to understand the Fulbe community, why it's so rich, and what happened to us when we went to the north, because there's a lot of questions here, and there's a lot of uneducated people about this issue talking crazy, not knowing what the heck they're talking about. I live here in Al-Maghrib, close to almost 2 decades now. And I did my research. And now, coupled with the DNA, and I started to find my relatives here, as you heard me say many times, I found that all my relatives, almost upwards of 500, they have 2 factors, the Amazigh and Fulani. That's right, brothers and sisters. My relatives here, some of them are very light skinned. I want to take pictures of some of my cousins I have here in Fez that I found through DNA. And they range in color. Some are light brown skin, all the way to very dark. These are my cousins, 3rd, 4th, 5th generation. And they range from very, very light skinned all the way to one of the sisters is very much 2 times, 3 times darker than me, but she's my cousin. See, so that's we all had the same mixture, this Fulani with the Amazigh. So I hope I got my point across to you, brothers and sisters, and that you have gotten something out of this today. And I hope I educated you on this. And if you like these type of talks, please subscribe to my station. I have many talks. I'll start going back into the Islamic part of my talks here, inshallah ta'ala. But I had to cover the Fulani factor in about 4 segments, because it's so important, brothers and sisters, because I'm Fulani. I'm Amazigh as well. But the Fulani people are under fire. And so I wanted to clear up a lot of misinformation. Also give a history of what happened to us and how we also were the conquerors of Andalus, and what happened, how we created many of these sultanates. The sultanates were Fulani, but they were known as Amazigh. Many of the sultans were black as the night, but they were Fulani. See, we know that the Mujahideen groups, the Murabitun, the Wahidun, we know their ancestry Fulani, basically that. And then we had, let's look at further and I'll close here. We have the great Amazigh clans, okay? You have Masmuda, you have the Sanhaja, which that's mine, and Amazigh. Sanhaja is my group that I fall under. All of these have one thing in common again, they have Fulani, but we also have Hausa mixed in with these particular clans. Masmuda, Jadela, Lamtuna, all of these are mixtures with Fulani and Hausa and Amazigh. So you have this mixture among these people. See, so this is a rich history. But also it was a complex in history because we didn't know what happened to our brothers who went across the desert. And in 18th centuries, and I will close, the Europeans, converts to Islam, they wanted to go live under the Moroccan Sultanate, the Alauin, which is now the last of the great sultanates and so forth. If you look at the history of them, you have great Sultan Rashid, who was black, and his sons and so forth and so on. He was black. He was the first of the creators of the Alauin, which is the power. The king now we have. They are the last of the kingdom, and their first the first sultan was black, and most likely Fulani. See, so we know that, and so forth and so on. And so the 18th century came, and I will close, brothers and sisters. The Europeans began to come in, the Tuba began to come in and settle in Al-Maghrib. And also slaves were taken at one time as well. Then we had to push because of the colonial brothers, the colonial enemy began to come in to now start to take over West Africa. The Fulani, the Hausa, and whatnot began to go further into Sahara to escape this. You had another mixing again, brothers and sisters. In the 17th, 18th century, you had a white mother convert to Islam again, okay? Now, white European woman, she might have been French or something like this, okay? And English, French, English, or whatever, she's white. She's not Melungeon, she's white. She comes into Al-Maghrib. You had the brothers, Fulani brothers, coming up into Al-Maghrib for safety as well through the Sahara. You had already the Melungeon people, as we see them today, called Moroccans. So the three begin to mix again. So now you had a new admixture. You added more Fulani and Hausa blood. You added more blood from Europe. And then you already had the amalgamation of the Melungeon people of Maghreb. Those three mixed. And this is why we have the state we have in Morocco today. You have brothers that look like me, they have straight hair. I mean, and some are 3 times darker than me and they got straight hair. It looks bizarre to me because you look at that, man, this guy looks like brother from Compton. You look at his hair is straight. You see light-skinned Moroccans, their hair is that afro. And because of the mixture with Fulani and all that, generally speaking, the Moroccan women are very, very beautiful women. Nobody can deny that. They're very beautiful because of all of this mixture. They're very beautiful women here in Al-Maghrib. So, brothers and sisters, I hope today I educated you on this interesting and fascinating fact about the Fulani factor. So I'll close with this segment, the fourth segment here. I talked about my ancestors and my Fulani ancestral brothers and sisters with this segment today about the Fulani factor and how they were the conquerors of West Africa. We know what happened in West Africa. We know how the sultanates, we had Omar Dal, we had all this, we had Askia Mohammed, we had Ahmed Bab al-Sudani, we had Usman Den Fodio. The Fulani took over West Africa as they have today, because we know most of the leaders are Fulani. We know most of our scholars in Ghana, Africa, West Africa, or what? Or Fulani. We know our most prominent scholars in West Africa are what? Fulani. We've always had the reigns of Islam. We've always excelled in it. We mastered it. We took it and we made it enriched it. We made sultanates from it. So we have a rich history and something to be proud of, brothers and sisters. So I will leave you with that fact about our beautiful ancestors who fought and died, but they died as Muslims. And they left a legacy, a rich legacy in Andalus as well. So I'll leave you with that, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.